Bun găsit la Defense România, eu sunt Tudor Curtifan. Astăzi suntem într-o ediție specială a emisiunii Obiectiv EuroAtlantic, întrucât avem un invitat cu adevărat special în persoana domnului general Robert Wheeler. General, hello, thank you for being here and thank you for accepting our invitation at Defense Romania.
It's my honor and I'm enjoying being here. Thank you.
Let's start our discussion, General, with the situation in Ukraine. How do you see the current situation? Do you think we can have peace negotiations? We saw what happened this week. Or do you think military actions will continue? And by the way, how do you think will look the war in the winter? Because winter is coming, but winter is coming not only for Ukrainians, winter is coming for Russians too.
Yes, I think across Europe and in the U.S., a lot of people are asking the question that you're asking right now. So I think it's an important question. I would put it this way: I think we need to continue with the operations that we're going on, and at the same time, always move towards peace when we can. I think that's an important point. I think we should never take out the opportunity for a negotiated peace. We're losing people on both sides every day.
Unfortunately.
Mothers are losing their sons and daughters every day. And if there's a way to stop that, we should move towards that. At the same token, I realize, given the atrocities that have happened against the Ukrainian people, that's very difficult for them to see and understand right now.
Cannot be forgotten.
And we can never forget that. I do think, though, if we can stop it, that would be good. At the same token, I don't think there's a way to say we're going to go with one versus the other. I think we need to go both at the same time and move forward.
Yep. Romania is very close to the front line in Ukraine. We are only a few miles away from Snake Island, where fierce battles have taken place in the last months.
Yes.
Yep. And everybody is talking about the Russian nuclear threat,
Right.
That it's real.
Right.
Do you think, straight question, do you think Vladimir Putin will use nuclear bombs in Ukraine, even tactical one, or somewhere in the Black Sea?
Yeah. Here's what I think is an important point to this. I do think that what you're hearing from the Russian government and from their spokespeople in there is designed for one thing. He is trying to break the solidarity of Europe with gasoline, and all of those in there. It's made him more vulnerable. I think that's the other reason it's so important, and I really mean this, for all of the U.S. side, all the West side, and I mean across the Atlantic on both sides, to continue with support of all these countries. I do think that's the critical aspect right now, because if he can't break that support, meaning Mr. Putin can't break that support, there's no chance of any loss here that could occur in that arena. I really do believe that. I think he understands that, and his focus is trying to break that strength of Western support for this particular situation that's going on right now. And I think that's a success story, honestly. We look at all the tragedy, but there is going to be a silver lining in this, that maybe we understand more about what it takes for peace in this time.
Yep.
And I think it's a lot more difficult than maybe we first thought.
Thousands of United soldiers in Romania, including soldiers from that legendary 101 Airborne Division, and that makes us extremely happy. But do you think United States should bring more troops in the Black Sea region? And my question is, do you think will be necessary a permanent United States presence in Romania?
So you're asking a loaded question. That's what you're doing. How about that?
In one question.
So here's how I would put that. I think there are two pillars that have to happen. The most important thing that happens, and I truly mean this, is interoperability between all the forces in NATO, the ability for them to work as a team, and to do all of the training that is necessary. If people think of training as something that is it's ancillary, it's not as important, actually, it's the most important thing we do. I consider them rehearsals. I think that the reason why in Afghanistan, Iraq, Desert Storm, and previous times, why at the tactical and operation level the United States has done so well with their allies is because we practiced, we rehearsed, we did what we did at the highest level possible. So whether they live here or they live in other parts of Europe or back in the United States, that's the important point is, can we interoperate together? Can we communicate? Can our C2, our command and control, connect? And have we been able to train together so we can train like we fight? That is what will stop anybody from being able to come into Romania or any other part of Europe for that matter.
Yep, speaking about connections and training together, do you think an assessment should be made at the level of the Romanian army with the support of United States, our strategic partners, in such a way to transform our army on an American model so that Romanian army could repel an aggression in the first phase of an hypothetical conflict?
Right. So the short answer to that is yes. Okay, and here's why and how. I just came from the resiliency conference here in Romania, and my particular panel was the emerging and disruptive technologies. And I think whether you're in the United States or any other part of Europe, all of the way we think in the military has to change. Look what happened in Ukraine. I mean, what's the number one communication device that you hear about every day? It's Starlink, okay? That's not a standard military radio in any manner, shape, or form. So I think it's incumbent upon all of the Western militaries to think through what sets of commercial technologies and what sets of traditional technologies we want to integrate. You know, it's kind of interesting from my perspective that all the cutting edge technology in years past has been through government investment in different things. It's changed over the years. Now, in the West, it's a lot of commercial technologies, and they're rapidly changing. All of our militaries have to be able to incorporate these new technologies that used to take years to develop. They're now being developed in months. And that ability to rapidly integrate them, to interoperate with them, and to train with them, it's not something we're used to doing. That's incumbent upon, I don't care if you're in the United States or any other NATO country, to be able to integrate them and to train with them. And so if you think of it from that perspective, yes, an assessment has to be done on all of our services. That's how we integrate all of this new capabilities and how we train with the new capabilities. Because I look at training as the last comment. If you think about how we used to train, big armies running through Germany, remember all those times we going over farms and different things? Okay, that is a way to do it. It's expensive. You can't do it very often. What if you're able to do it with live and virtual and constructive training? So you have people in the field, you have people in different parts of the world connected while flying airplanes, as well as people with AR, VR type glasses on there. So you can train almost continuously so that we truly can be an interoperable force. So I think that's the way forward. And yes, that will take an assessment across the board of how to integrate those technologies to make sure we're doing the best for our troops.
The technology is very important, extremely important.
It's extremely important, but the key is how you use those technologies and how you train with them and how you rehearse with them and how you integrate.
This is the discussion about AE.
Yes.
The same discussion is.
Absolutely.
Speaking about technology, how do you see the Romanian army in the concept of new modern combat operation?
Okay, I would say the same thing here. It's about that integration and training that we've talked about there. So I would argue that the technologies out there have some new advantages. If you think about the past, we used to put in new boxes all the time. And imagine in a conflict like we see in Ukraine today, that could take months to procure, maybe years, and then it would take months to years to actually integrate into aircraft, tanks, ships, you name that particular aspect. And then it would take more years to actually train with those tools. So today, there's a lot of technologies that don't require new boxes. They can be done in software. They can be done virtually. And that ability to do it allows us to be what was brought up in that resiliency conference, the speed of relevance. I really enjoyed that term. The speed of relevance today is there could be combat operations very rapidly in another part of Europe. We can't wait a decade to do this. We have to figure out how to do that, and the West is very good at it, especially young people building new kinds of capabilities to integrate them rapidly and to integrate them in software and to be able to upgrade systems that we have rapidly and to be able to do it because of that cheaper. I think that's another aspect that's important, to take legacy systems and modern systems, integrate them across the board, being able to bring them together, being able to do it with software, and be able to do it quickly, to train with that, and to make it cheaper, because none of our governments can afford to upgrade all these different devices and capabilities. And we can't wait to 2030 to build the perfect capability. We have to do this now, and when we do that, we build a force that deters any other future combat. Because I always used to think of two things. Our objective is not to fight wars in the military.
Correct.
It's to deter. And deterrence requires a capable force that can prevent war. Only if we fail this first mission do we ever have to go to this second mission. And that's at a point where we've already failed the first mission, and then we have to be extremely capable in combat. And I think that's the key point to bring out.
Speaking about this command and control is essentially, we see what happens in Ukraine during the recent months. And Romania is pursuing a command and control system. What should we look after, General?
So if I was to build it today, I would think of it this way. It's going to be a lot of different transport layers. So in other words, you think about pipes where all the data goes through. There's going to be commercial pipes. You can name the different types of companies that you can think out there, ones that you know the names of: Inmarsat, Viasat, Iridium, Starlink, plus the standard military ones as well. All of them become the various pipes where the command and control can go to. Some of them terrestrial. Think of 5G systems that can be used from the military side. Think of tactical data links on the airborne platforms, and think about the satellites I just mentioned. All of them provide what we'll call a secure fabric or a secure mesh network that interconnects all these endpoint devices into a single operational picture that we can move data, information, and we can work some at the edge for edge processing, and some all the way back to the home cloud, if you will. But all of this is going on this secure fabric. So it's commercial and traditional military type pipes, if you will, interconnected, providing a level of resiliency that you don't even come close to having today. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's expensive. It's not expensive per se. It's just done differently, and it's done with new technology, and it allows us to take it forward and at a speed where it's not decades from now. We can do this in months and years versus decades.
Yep. General Wheeler, I know you are a former pilot.
Yes.
You served in the United States Air Force. Recently, Romania bought 32 F-16 fighter jets, and but there are some critical voices in Romania that says Bulgaria or Slovakia have bought new planes, F-16 Viper version. On the other hand, we know that this acquisition is just a transition to the F-35. How do you see this situation?
I agree with the decision actually that they made, and I'll tell you why. Because
at an excellent price, I might say.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the point.
That's the point.
You need a capability now to deter. If you're going to buy something in several years and wait for it, this goes back to my deterrence discussion right now. What do you get out of that airplane right now? You get the fact that you have capability today in case something goes wrong in the situation, something that we can't predict. Nobody would have predicted Ukraine 5 years ago. Nobody would have. Now you have a capability, and what else can you do? You can train. And you can train and you can become better, because it's less important sometimes about the actual platform you're on, but how good you are as a pilot. Okay, so being able to do that, and it's not just the platform, it's the weapons that airplane carries, because they can give you the edge as well. So having a capability today to deter, having the weapons that you're still working through to put on those aircraft, to make that there, and you will be much more prepared and be able to deter first off, and much more prepared for the future when you receive other airplanes. I think it was a great decision because it gives you capability today, it prepares you for the future, and you will be much more ready to accept other aircraft in the future. And in the meantime, you are defending the country, and you are preparing it, and you are becoming a strong NATO partner up front.
Will be a challenge to train so many pilots for.
Oh my goodness, yes. It'll be, and to me, honestly, it's the training. It is the training and rehearsing that we do that makes you the capable aviator. And I always loved my training. I think my training was probably the best in the world at the time, and I truly mean it. I think it still is today. And because of that, we never lost anybody in my unit in combat because of that.
Wow. General, I heard you this week talking about cyber threat. You said that a cyber attack can have major consequences, like a nuclear one.
Right.
So how big is the cyber challenge in the future, and how should it be managed?
Yes. So the comment that I made in the resiliency piece is people were all focused because of Vladimir Putin's threats of weapons out there and the fact that he maybe put radioactive things out there. But we got to keep in mind that cyber threats can be what we consider a weapon of mass destruction. It can have massive effects. So if you do it in a sense of shutting down a power grid and destroying it, and I'll give you an example. If you were to destroy transformers, very difficult. Transformers take months to build and years. So taking down power grids in that particular way, cutting food supplies in different areas can have mass impact to people on there. So thinking about the cyber problem is a big deal, because also many times some of our senior generation have not lived through that. They don't physically see it and they don't understand it sometimes, but it's there. So everything we do today, we're interconnected. Everybody has a telephone. I don't think there's anybody in the United States or in Romania that does not have a telephone. I just drove here, and when I drove here, I watched a bunch of young people get off of a bus, and what did they all do? The phone is in their hand. It's the first thing they're doing. They're digesting information from the phone. But it's not just the phone. It's the parliament. It's everybody across there. All of our systems are connected with SCADAs or ICSs, which are industrial control systems. All of our internet is connected. By the way, we pay our bills that way. Yeah. We do everything that we do in that particular area. So it's out there. It's not a threat, though, that can't be dealt with, and it's not something to fear. I tell you that technology is not to be feared. It has to be dealt with, though. So there's ways to do it. I talked about it just recently, even on your commercial phone. There's ways that you can be smart about how you do business, where you take your applications, which ones you have, when you update your phones. This is no different than, do you change oil in your car? I mean, that's a simple point that you do there. Do you ever put new brakes on your car to prevent anything? No different on this. Whether you're electrical power grid, are there ways to update it to protect that electrical power grid so that you don't have those problems? Absolutely. In the United States, the power grid was designed for efficiency. It's extremely efficient. It was not designed for thwarting a giant cyber attack. Now we're putting new capabilities on there. They don't have to be expensive. They have to be smart. Most cyber issues, and I'll give you our Department of Defense, can be solved with what we call cyber hygiene, just simple things with passwords, two-factor identification, things that don't cost much, but just require procedures and a new way of thinking about it. No difference than taking care of something mechanically. So I see this as something from a national perspective that can be done, and you can increase the cybersecurity of all for very little money and give you more cyber aware. And I also think it helps understand how to fight the information war that goes out there, the disinformation that Russia puts out every single day. It helps us get our arms around how we can actually protect our population and give them the facts so they can make their own decision about it, instead of the disinformation that you see Vladimir Putin's team generate every single day.
Yeah, because the Russian propaganda is very active.
It's very active. It's very active. And to understand that, I think the new generation has to realize what's real and what's disinformation. And I think we can help in that arena by protect from the cybersecurity and helping train them in schools. Journalism. This is an important forum that matters. That's democracy, is journalism, and it can get out the facts. And it can show what Vladimir's putting out there is not the right data, and what you're putting out there is.
Yes, you're right. And speaking about propaganda, this is my last question, General. Why do you think Russia is afraid of the American military base at Deveselu in Romania? We know at Deveselu it's an Aegis Ashore missile, anti-ballistic missile system, a defensive one, it's important to say this. But Russian propaganda always says that, from Deveselu, Moscow can be hit. We know this is a fake news, but why this rhetoric?
So, because it puts doubt in people's minds. They're trying to sow doubt in a portion of the population. That particular capability, Aegis on the ground, as we would call it there, is simply defensive. We only use weapons like this in a defensive manner. Russians, on the other hand, when they use their air defense missiles, they use them in an offensive and a defensive manner. We don't do that. We have only defensive capabilities with those missiles. They are not designed for offensive capabilities. They're designed only for defensive. But again, some people that don't have the technical background and know that will not understand that, and that will sow doubt in their mind. And that is how disinformation is done. It's done because it's a partial truth. It is defensive. It's not offensive. So they sow the partial disinformation, the partial truth, and then you start to believe the rest of it, which is a pure lie. And I think it's a very effective to people that don't fully understand the technical backgrounds. And that's where you come in. We need you to explain, no, this is only a defensive weapon. It does not have offensive capabilities. And that is just absolutely not true of what they're saying. And that's just the way they do it. But from their mind, that's how they use their weapons. We don't do that.
Yep. Yep. General Wheeler, thank you very much for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
It was such an honor to having you.
It was my honor to be here, and I enjoyed being in Romania. Honestly, I really loved it.
Waiting you back in our studios.
Thank you again.
Next show.
Take care.
Thank you. Rămâneți pe Defense România.